Today, we're going to take a close look at how farmers just plain get more free money from the government when there's a Republican in the White House. Late in 2025, U.S. farmers finally got that farm bailout they were asking for. So it's a good time to talk about why farmers keep voting for Trump. I'm a small family farmer, and I'm one of the 20 or 30% of U.S. farmers who don't vote Republican. But because of the job, I spend a lot of time with the farmers who do. Why most U.S. farmers vote Republican is something I've talked about before, and today I wanted to give you an inside look at why. Now, like most things, the best way to understand this is just follow the money. Now, the fact that money explains farmers' loyalty to Republicans might seem obvious once you say it out loud, but when I see people try to explain why farmers vote Republican, their explanation usually comes down to culture war issues, and those are definitely in the mix. But I haven't really seen anyone take the follow the money part seriously yet, which is crazy because as big as the culture war part of the equation is, the money part is at least as big. And if we can't come to grips with this money part of the equation, we are going to stay lost about how our own country's politics really work. That's not good. So we're just going to do that today. We're going to do something a little wild and crazy. We're going to read the farm news and see what farmers are saying about how they expected to get more money for free from the government under Trump than under the last guy. It's that simple. And it's not exactly a secret either, folks. They are spelling out exactly what their logic is for free on the internet for anybody to read. Maybe we should try that. So, in honor of the fresh new $12 billion farm bailout that U.S. farmers just got in December 2025, let's revisit one of my favorite pieces of farm journalism. An article from early 2025 about how great it was that Trump was back in the White House. And its title is, Government Payments Drive U.S. Farm Income Surge in 2025. This comes from AgWeb, by the way. It's a really solid publication. This is a shout out. They will just straight up tell you what's going on. They'll even spell it out with pictures. So let's dive in. Government Payments Drive U.S. Farm Income Surge in 2025. Now, this is my favorite part. This was written in February of 2025. So they actually had no idea how much money farms were about to make this year. We didn't know what the market conditions were going to be. I think the trade war was just starting and people thought it was going to be resolved very quickly and easily at that point. Basically, Trump had just gotten into the White House and promised farmers a bunch of free money. A staggering increase in government payments, 345% from $9.3 billion last year to $42.4 billion in 2025. Again, keep in mind, the year had just started and none of that money had been given to farmers yet. They were just assuming it was going to happen. They were anticipating a lot more free money from the government, over triple what they got in the year before. Driven by U.S. farm sectors poised for a significant increase in farm revenue, primarily driven by an unprecedented rise in government payments, despite a decline in overall farm revenues. All right, so they are telling us we are expecting to make way more money just because the government is throwing free money at us, even though we're actually going to earn less by farming. Net farm income is forecast to go way up. This is a forecast being made in very, very early spring. This is before anything is planted. Just assuming that they're going to get free money from the government. That's all this is. Here they even gave us a handy little chart. Okay, we're going to go through these. The green line is net farm income. That is how much money you're making when you sell your crops or your livestock after you take out expenses, right? So this is revenue minus expenses. This is how much money a farm actually makes from growing crops and livestock. This is the money they're actually earning from doing the job of farming. As you can see, it's kind of up and down all over the place. This right here is free money from the government. This is just anticipated. Again, this is from February 2025. No one had even planted their crops yet. And we're just expecting, because of an election, that we're going to get a huge injection of money. If you've ever heard people say farmers make more money when there's a Democrat in the White House, this is more or less what they're talking about here. You'll see in the Bush years, we kind of had a little bit of surge, and then we kind of drop during most of the Bush years. The Great Recession is happening. Then under Obama, it kind of surges for most of that. It goes up quite a bit, from 100 billion up to 160 billion. It's quite an increase. And then it drops again significantly under Trump. And then when Biden's in the White House, it goes up again. Now, this farm income actually doesn't have a lot to do with who's in the White House. It has a lot to do with geopolitical events. So this big spike under Obama, this big surge is coming from the Great Recession. You have a lot of economic instability. Anytime there's a lot of economic and political instability, investors, institutional investors, hedge funders, just people with a lot of money, they start buying food futures, crops, pork bellies, that kind of thing. And the reason they do that is because everyone has to eat. And so it doesn't matter what's going on politically. People are always going to buy food. So that's seen as a very secure investment when times are bad. And that's going to drive the price of food up, right? So if you're a farmer, geopolitical instability is a good thing because people get kind of anxious to buy your stuff and are willing to pay a little bit more for it. That's why the prices went up under the Obama administration. It's because there's a global financial crisis that started before he got in office, and the consequences just kept playing out over his terms in office. So that's why farm prices went up during this period we see here. And here, 2020 onwards, you see something similar. Investors also start buying food futures when there's inflation for the same reason. People have to eat, so it doesn't matter how much inflation goes up, people have to buy food. food. So for that reason, food, crop futures, livestock futures are seen as a good investment when there is inflation, because it doesn't matter how much they cost, people will have to buy it. So that again drove crop prices up considerably. Again, the pandemic didn't start under Biden. The consequences just played out under his administration. So you see crop prices going up. Also combined with that, you had Russia invading Ukraine in 2022. So you had a lot of investors already driving up the price of crops. And then there's a big disturbance in the global food supply because of the war in Ukraine. So those two things together drove up crop and livestock prices a lot. And so that's why farmers are making a lot more money here. So you have those big geopolitical events that are outside of governmental control. At the same time, politics definitely does come into play here. Before Trump, there was a big surge in soybean sales to China, and a lot of other sales also plummeted under him because of the trade war. So that's another part of the reason you see this income go way down under Trump. The actual money that farmers are making from selling their crops and livestock goes way down under Trump because he started a trade war. And under Biden, in addition to this geopolitical and economic stuff that's happening in the background, the Biden administration also reopened trade to China. So there's a lot of demand in the global markets for what the US could grow, and people could actually buy it. So that's another part of why you see farm income surge under the Biden administration. So if you're just looking at that, it gets really easy to assume that of course farmers would want Democrats in the White House because the geopolitical events are happening in the background. You can't really control those. But if you have a government that can be responsible and make sure you have trade options, you're going to be able to navigate that and make a better income no matter what's happening around you in the world. Now, just to clear up something too, if you listen to the news, what we are always hearing from farmers is every time the prices for crops go up, the prices for the inputs I have to buy goes up even more. Fertilizer, the seed, the fuel, everything they put on their crops, the price for that increases quote unquote faster than the price of the crops does. Except if you look at this green line, that's net. That is the money we're making from farming minus what we had to pay for the inputs. And you will notice it is higher. And it's kind of crazy. But if you look at this is net farm income, right? This is what they're making from selling crops and livestock, what they paid for all that seed, fertilizer, and fuel. And you will notice that in the years when crop prices go up, their net incomes go up. So all those complaints about how inputs are eating up all their income doesn't really track. I mean, 2024 was a rough year. You see farm income was way down from its peak in 2022. And yet you can see in 2024, which was quote unquote a rough year for farms, farm income on the whole was still a lot higher than it was for every single year of Trump's first term. Now, of course, every single farmer is not going to experience that. Different farmers in different areas growing different things are going to have different experiences, but it tells you what the overall kind of average experience is. Probably seen a lot of hand-wringing in the news about how 2024 was a dreadful year, and it was way better than every single year of Trump's first administration overall. By the way, if you're liking this video, if you feel like you're learning something, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe, a comment. It really does help this video get out in front of more people. And there's a Patreon down below. I've got some editors and some folks who help me with research, making sure that we get good data and info in front of you, and it really helps them pay their rent. If you're strictly going off of this green line, how much money farmers make from actually farming, you would go, wow, of course farmers are going to want Democrats in the White House. Which, if you look at how farmers actually behave and vote and advocate, that's going to get really confusing because supporting Democrats in power is not what most farmers are doing. Now, how on earth are farmers seeing this and experiencing this in their pocketbooks and still supporting Republicans? The best answer for that can be found down here in this blue line. That is government payments. That's free money from the government. Of course, they're never going to call it free money from the government. It's always funds they deserve and they need for some reason. It's critical. But they didn't have to work for it. It's given to them. If it came from the government, instead of selling crops and livestock, it's free money from the government. So this is welfare. So if you look at the farmer welfare line, it tends to go up when there's a Republican in the White House. We have a little bump under W. Bush, and then it stays pretty flat at only $9 to $12 billion per year under Obama. It stays pretty flat under Obama's entire administration. And then it surges under Trump's first term. And it goes back to normal under Biden. And then they penciled in, well, Trump's in the White House now, so we're going to make $42 billion in free government money. This is why farmers vote Republican. There it is. They did not get the entire $42 billion that they wanted. They got something less than that. I haven't totaled it all up yet. There were multiple bailouts that were given out over 2025. The $12 billion bailout was just the third or the fourth of them. For that final bailout of 2025, they were asking for $35 billion and only got 12. $12 billion is more than farmers got every single year for most of these years that Democrats were in the White House. So one of the 3 or 4 bailouts they got in 2025 was less than they wanted, and it was still more than they got in an entire year. Most years Democrats were in the White House because Democratic presidents and administrations tend to be more focused on, hey, let's make sure you have opportunities that you can work for, as opposed to free welfare money. It's a bummer, I guess. Now, this paints a pretty clear picture. We always see farmers saying, we want to work for our money. We don't want bailouts. We don't want handouts. We just want opportunities. We just want to be able to work and sell our crops and livestock. But if you look at what farmers actually do, who they vote for, who they support, what they say when they're brought on the news to explain what's going on, they are supporting the people who give them more free money. So if you want to understand what's really going on, you need to kind of put aside what people say and you need to look at what they actually do. This is what farmers tend to do. There's a lot of talk about hard work and earning your way, but what is actually done is seeking out free money from the government. It is what it is, and we should say it. Should also address the elephant in the room, which is people tend to say, well, all this money is going to go to corporations and millionaires. It's not going to family farmers, and that's who it should go to. Here's the thing. The money is not going to mostly go to corporations. It's mostly going to go to family farmers because it's based on acreage, and most of the land in this country is farmed by family farmers. Most of the farms that people think are corporate farms are actually family farms. Depending on the year, 95 to 98% of U.S. farms are family farms. And that includes the big ones. A lot of the big quote-unquote corporate farms are family farms. They're just big. Some family farmers are just pretty wealthy and they have a lot of property and a lot of equipment. They're not corporate at all. They are 100% family owned. They've got many generations of legacy, pillars of the community, and they're a big industrial farm. It's a very treasured assumption that people have that family farms and corporations are totally different. And if you challenge that, they can get really upset. But as a small family farmer, I have every reason to keep telling you, yes, corporations are bad. I'm good. I'm a small family farmer. You should trust me with the money. You should not give it to them. And I am telling you, that's not how it works. I think we're kind of taught to believe that there is a hard line between corporations and family farms, and they're nothing alike, and it's a David versus Goliath situation. That is not really what's going on. The relationship between family farms and corporations, in many cases, is a lot cozier than that, and a lot of family farms work hand in glove with corporations in very friendly partnerships. That's a whole nother video. We don't need to get into that right now. If you would like to learn more about that, let me know in the comments. I just have a hard time imagining people wanting to click on and sit through an intro to partnerships between family farms and corporations. So that's that on that for now. The other part of that is all this bailout money is only going to go to millionaires. I got news for you. That's most farmers. Most U.S. farmers are millionaires. I know that sounds a little shocking. We've all been raised to believe that family farmers are struggling and going out of business. That was true in the 20th century. And when you have a century of the small, poor, struggling people in an industry getting pushed out, who's left? It's not the poor ones. Most small family farmers in the U.S. right now are millionaires with a six-figure income. It's not necessarily that farming makes you rich, but it takes a certain amount of financial ballast to stay in because small farms don't make money. So bottom line, when people say, oh, but that farm bailout money is only going to go to millionaires, pretty much no matter which farmers you give it to, even if they're small family farmers, it's still going to go to mostly millionaires. And just because someone's a millionaire doesn't mean they're a bad person, but it does mean they're not poor. It's just kind of hard to justify farm bailouts as a poverty relief thing, even for small family farms. The politics and financials of what is a family farmer and what is a small family farmer and who are these people really, again, a whole different video. If you want to hear more about that, it can be a boring statistical deep dive. I can try and keep it fun, but if you all want to hear more about that, let me know. This article wraps up in such an interesting way. They say, well, it sure is nice that we're getting all this free money, but we're not sure if that's a viable thing long term. You know, if that's a good idea for the health of the country, but also politically, it may not be feasible. Lawmakers may face renewed pressure to reform the farm safety net in future legislation. So this is an interesting way to say, yeah, we know what we're doing is kind of shady and sketchy and taking advantage of everybody, and we know we're probably going to get caught, but it sure is fun while it lasts. Again, this article is putting it all out there. They're telling us exactly why farmers vote for Trump and that they understand exactly what the risks are, that people are going to catch on to the fact that the public is being taken advantage of. Farmers are choosing to do things that are bad for their bottom line because they know they can just get free money from the government. They know they can harvest the taxpayer. Farmers' favorite livestock is the U.S. taxpayer, and they are actually worried that people are going to find out they're getting fleeced. So I would say that if farmers in general understand that what they're doing is shady, and they understand that when they get caught, it's going to end, well, it sounds like the smart folks in the business are going to be preparing for that. People in the business who are paying attention are going to be prepared for the end of that free money, and I don't think we should be afraid of cutting it off. I don't think the public understands how much they're being taken for granted here. You know, we're kind of always told this story. You're saving farmers. We have to save the farmers. They feed us, right? Well, the people who are getting hit hardest by the trade war are growing crops for foreign markets. They're not feeding Americans. That's why they're in trouble financially. They're also choosing to grow crops that don't make a lot of money. I keep hearing farmers say stuff like, oh, I keep growing corn and I can't make money on it. I keep growing soy and I can't make money on it. Who's making you grow corn and soy? Who's making you keep growing crops that lose money? These are crops that are relatively simple to grow. That's what makes them popular. It's not because they're lucrative. So if you're making a choice to grow crops because they're simple, that's why you're not making money. Everybody wants to grow the simple crops. And again, nothing in agriculture is easy. There's a scale of hard to hardest, and corn and soy and other bulk commodity crops are kind of by the bottom. That's what makes it a staple. It's not difficult to grow. But if I, as a farmer, am making a choice to repeatedly grow the stuff that makes low revenue, and it's been doing that consistently for 10 or 20 or 30 years, and I keep doing that, stop hitting yourself. And I know it's not just that simple. It is work to switch to other things. But if we've had decades to notice that some crops don't make money, and we've had decades to change what we're doing, I don't think we can hold the taxpayers responsible for paying us for our failure to take care of ourselves as a business. If we keep growing stuff that doesn't make a ton of money over and over again, is that really the taxpayer's problem to solve, or is that our problem to solve? You'll see people say things like, corn and soy are great because I can just sell them. That's such a pudding-brained way of thinking of agriculture. I know a farmer just around here got a neighbor who is growing weird stuff like sesame and sunflower. Those are a little unusual to grow around here. So he has his own grain bins to harvest and store them into. So when people say like, oh, I have to grow to corn and soy because that's the only thing my local elevators will buy, bullshit. Never going off on the deep end. Nonsense. Probably shouldn't say bullshit. That is nonsense. You absolutely can grow whatever will grow well in your area. You don't have to limit yourself to what the local elevators will buy. You just have to take more responsibility for like storing it and selling it yourself. Crazy enough, agriculture is a lot more rewarding financially when you treat it like a job instead of a part-time side hustle, but not everybody's willing to do that. So they keep growing the simple stuff and then blaming everybody else when they don't make money. All right, I think we're done. Oh my God, we did it. We lived. I can't wait to wake up in the morning with everything in my head that I should have said instead.